Now, last year I had some messages, and just as a refreshment, I believe they are still valid, but I don't want to fully repeat them. One, as Mr. Friesbach mentioned, we are the center of the UN Transport Conventions, and you can see on this map that countries that are in dark green are the ones who acceded to most of these conventions, and countries in white have not acceded to one single UN convention on transport, and light green means that not that many. So there is still a long way to go. Now, in the vehicle regulations area, I would say that the situation is not that bad except for the periodical vehicle inspections. However, you can consider the accession to the UN conventions as an indicator of governance and capacity to make your economy competitive in the world. We compared the accession intensity of high-income countries who are landlocked, like Switzerland or Austria, and the low-income countries who are landlocked, like, for example, Tajikistan, but I can name others as well. Now, the accession intensity to the UN conventions of the high-income countries landlocked is 86%. The landlocked low-income countries, 12%. So there is definitely a correlation even between economic competitiveness and implementation and accession to the UN conventions. The main message last year was, and this is the main message this year as well, that the convergence of technologies, and actually as a result of that, the traditional transport sector and the traditional telecommunication sector, this convergence is actually calling for changing role of government. But this changing role is pushed into different directions as well by other changes, the political power shift in the world, and also the increasing concern at a multilateral level on the performance of the transport sector. So definitely there is a growing need for the use of multilateralism, like, for example, WP29. Now, since last year, there are some achievements on the ground supporting automation in the road sector, but not only the road sector. And I would like to underline that from my perspective, working on inland transport, we don't like saying that road, 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 because the road sector is effective if it is well connected to the other modes, and if the other modes are well used as well. So we had a couple of achievements. One achievement, I would say, is that for the first time in the history, the importance of connectivity for economic growth, social integration, and peace has been recognized by the General Assembly by a resolution. And when we speak about connectivity, of course, traditionally we say connecting by roads and railroads the different countries and having an access to a port. But connectivity also means the networked, connected cars. So connectivity is more than the physical, what we can see. It is also the IT connectivity. So it's a very important thing that for the first time there is a political recognition of this important area. Another achievement since we met last year is the amendment proposal of the Vienna Conventions, because as you all know, there are lots of concerns or complaints that what is a real problem is the Vienna Conventions, because the driver must be in control of the vehicle and its animals, if it's not a motorized vehicle. Well, I challenge that this is a real concern, but it has been blown out of proportions so much that politically there was a need to make a change. So now the governments agreed on the amendments in the framework of the Working Party on Road Safety. This is the WP1. And the agreement is, and it's not only Vienna Conventions, it's also the conventions on traffic rules of 1949, which are the Geneva Conventions, so, and their amendment protocols. So the main message there is that if the technology is sort of adopted by WP29 regulation, then it is in line with the principles of the Geneva and Vienna Conventions. So if you work well with the vehicle regulations, you will not have a problem with the interpretation of the Vienna Convention, in a simple term. However, if you are not a contracting party to any of the vehicle regulation conventions, then at least you have to have the possibility that in the car the automation can be switched off. Because in that case, again, you don't have a conflict, a legal conflict. Well, as you know, this is not, this is the first step, so this is not the end. The Working Party recognized that with this they practically addressed the political concern, but much more work needs to be done to understand the different levels of automation and what changes are needed on that. And I will speak a little bit later on that as well. Then a number of UN regulations on vehicle automation have been passed during the past year as well. Plus the Inland Transport Committee not only had its policy debate last year on innovations with a lot of inputs on automated driving, as well as Google was one of our speakers, but this year actually the committee decided to ask more work on ITS, not simply in the vehicle area, in the traffic rules area, in the infrastructure area, which are in different working parties, but in a horizontal way. So much more cooperation between the different working parties is envisaged, and maybe next year there will be a bigger decision on support of the use of information and communication technologies and intelligent transport services. And last but not least, the ITS informal working group under WP29 has agreed on a new roadmap, and now they are changed their names because now it's automated driving is included in their area. So this is the last year, only the tip of the iceberg. But we have still a lot of our areas to look into. And when I mentioned the liability, I'm serious about that. We cannot drop the ball after having the first little progress. We will have to understand much, much better the different levels of automation and their impact on safety and traffic rules. So I would like to see who is representing the customers, because the human beings, the individuals, are not very well represented so far. We understand the demand from different other stakeholders, but the customers' interests are not that included. Then, infrastructure. The different speed and different life cycles would call for very different approach in investment planning. A lot of road investment planning is underway right now, but maybe there should be even a stage construction approach for the IT connections, and it is not yet in the policymakers' mind. When we speak about infrastructure, I would like to consider that traffic management is part of that. And traffic management is in revolution, but aren't the directions diverging? And if they are diverging, how to make sure that they will be harmonized? Because you cannot go in one direction for traffic management in cities, in another city in another direction, and for the intercity transport, again another one. Traffic rules, perhaps the most difficult ones. The total overhaul is needed. Just think of platooning. In traffic rules, we have the rule of having a mandatory distance between the vehicles. And so in order to allow that if somebody takes over, that car has the possibility to come back. But in platooning, would that be feasible? And of course, the traffic rules are not good if they are on a piecemeal way or at a national level or even regional. They must be at multilateral level. New mobility. We all speak about this convergence of ICT and transport, at a time when new mobility patterns are coming up, more priority to public transport. There are already experiments on automation for public transport, buses, but how much more you can go, and how much the impact on car use will have. Car share definitely changes this. And road transport is not alone, it is part of the integrated network. So multimodal transport is important. Recently we have seen a new Australian research about increasing safety at level crossing through information technologies. Now, maybe much more can be done in that area, but I know it's costly. However, the benefits would be very high. Impact. The impacts are not well understood yet. There are lots of promises. Hopefully, we have to have the understanding sooner or later how these promises or impact assessment can be carried out. But so we have to understand the impacts on jobs, the social impact, the impact of the societal impact, the change of lifestyle, the change in mobility. And also think of the digital divide among countries. Do we want to see that some vehicles will not be able to enter less developed countries because their infrastructure is not ready to handle those vehicles? Or are they really safer under different conditions? And regulations. We have heard that there are different standard setting activities in ITU. We know that, very important activities. We know that there are, we don't call them standards, we have regulations. We set the regulations. But with this convergence, we have to start thinking about making sure that there is this one-stop shop approach. One-stop shop, so that regulations are not going to be discussed and agreed on separately and then long process to harmonize them. By the way, we have experience of that bad practice in several areas. Instead of that, it's better to have one already harmonized compromise solution. So many multilateral regulators might have a problem with this, and we have to make sure that the multilateral stakeholders are around the same table so that we can service the people, first of all, but also the growth of the industries in the most efficient way. So these are the challenges. There are much more, but these are the challenges we are looking at in this year. And with that, I have reached my area of conclusions that there is a long way to convert all these challenges into opportunities. The Inland Transport Committee is determined to continue to be a platform, even more, for consultations and to turn the results into legislative decisions. And you are most welcome to join forces with us. Thank you.